Good morning, I'm Gretchen Ho. We're coming to you on this Thursday, on the 8th day of January, bringing you Morning Matters because your morning's matters get to the stories that matter today. Senator Imee has raised concerns that government aid funds are being linked to the impeachment effort against Vice President Sara Duterte. However, lawmakers quickly rebutted this claim, asserting that the complaint will be grounded in evidence from the past year rather than any promised funding. Speaking of ayuda, the Makati Business Club wants an executive order from President Marcos to formalize the rules for disbursing government aid funds. They stated that while the budget shows improvements, and program allocations remain vulnerable to discretionary use. And thousands of devotees flocked to the Quirino Grandstand as the traditional pahalik for the image of Jesus Nazarene began last night. Welcome to our program, Morning Matters, where we talk about the issues you need to know for the rest of your day. Now, first in the agenda, Senator Imee believes that another impeachment complaint against Vice President Sara Duterte may be filed in February. The senator linked this possibility to the 2026 national budget, noting what she described as a significant increase in funds allocated for social assistance programs. Senator Marcos further claimed she received information that some lawmakers had already been promised so-called soft pork sourced from various social aid programs.
Napipilitan lang ako talaga maging malisyoso. Ang totoo, hindi naman talaga napag-usapan sa budget. Pero nung nakita ko, eto nga, ng mga gilingan ng baboy, ayan na, yung mga napakaraming soft na lumobo. Bakit may ganun pa eh? Ang sabi kasi, naniwala naman ako na magiging cleanest budget, naging sneaky budget naman to. Bakit ganon? So, bakit ginigiling ang pork kundi para pagulungin ang impeachment? Kaya, yun nga, nagtataka ako bakit ganon.
Lawmakers, however, are quick to react to allegations that government funds could be used to advance another impeachment complaint against Vice President Sara Duterte. Congressman Terry Didon, for one, believes the push for an impeachment complaint is based on the pieces of evidence and grounds presented last year and not on any promised projects or funding. Here's a report.
House Committee on Public Accounts Chair and Bicol Saro Party List Representative Terry Redon believes that lawmakers' push for an impeachment complaint against Vice President Sara Duterte is not based on any promised projects or funding. Redon stressed that the evidence and grounds presented last year, such as the alleged anomalous use of confidential funds, remain clear and substantial, which is why many supported the impeachment of the Vice President. According to Redon, should another impeachment complaint be filed against Duterte, the call for accountability and the pursuit of truth would remain the primary motivation.
Whatever moves that will happen by the 5th of February, by the 6th of February will be undertaken independently of whatever it is that is being alleged. No? Kasi impeachment proceedings naman po are not based on projects that are promised. No? Impeachment proceedings are based on quests for truth and accountability, particularly on the use of confidential funds. No? So the basis for the impeachment last year has not changed actually for 2026.
Redon added that it is also important to know the current status or decision of the Supreme Court on the motion for reconsideration regarding its earlier dismissal of the impeachment complaint against Vice President Sara Duterte last year. If the High Court reverses its previous ruling, there would be no need to file a new impeachment complaint as impeachment proceedings in the Senate would resume. Meanwhile, according to ACT Teachers Party List Representative Antonio Tino, there was no clear allocation of funds for impeachment during the 2026 budget deliberations. However, he acknowledged that public funds are sometimes used to incentivize the majority to support the administration's agenda or to pressure Malacanang's critics. Tino and the Makabayan Bloc maintained that Vice President Duterte should still be held accountable for what they describe as the misuse of public funds.
Dapat pa ring ma-impeach at mapanagot ang Vice Presidente sa pagwaldas niya ng daan-daang milyong confidential funds. Wala pa rin siyang lusot doon. Talagang dapat na mapanagot siya through impeachment as well as through other means.
House Senior Deputy Minority Leader and Caloocan Representative Edgar Erice believes that if a new impeachment complaint is filed against Vice President Duterte, President Bongbong Marcos should also face the impeachment court to answer allegations linked to the flood control scandal.
Pareho na lang silang humarap sa impeachment court. Pareho silang magpaliwanag dun sa mga akusasyon sa kanila. Ang mahalaga dito ay hindi kampi-kampihan. Ang mahalaga dito ay papanagot kung sino yung dapat managot.
Health Secretary Ted Herbosa pushed back against removal rumors as he detailed government priorities in healthcare funding and services. Here's a report.
In an interview with The Big Story, Health Secretary Ted Herbosa dismissed reports that he is set to be removed from his post. He said cabinet officials serve as the pleasure of the president and stressed that he continues to carry out President Bongbong Marcos' mandate.
The cabinet secretaries all serve at the pleasure of the president. The president can replace us anytime. But we continue to fulfill the mandate of this president. The priority is education, health, and agriculture. And I'm up there trying to make sure that healthcare of the Filipino people gets better.
Herbosa also denied facing serious legal challenges, describing the cases filed against him as a mere nuisance complaints.
These are just allegation cases, but we've never received any single notice from the ombudsman since they started filing. So it sounds to me like there are nuisance cases.
Meanwhile, the health secretary said the government's push to expand zero-balance billing will eventually reduce the demand for the medical assistance for indigent and financially incapacitated patients or MAEFIP. He clarified, however, that this would depend on the PhilHealth's capacity to enhance its benefit packages and cover more medical services.
That depends on how PhilHealth will be able to increase the benefit packages this coming year. This year, we target to implement the diagnosis-related group reimbursement system. Right now, it's a case rate. So if you have pneumonia, there's only one fee for pneumonia. So what we will do with the diagnosis-related is, if you have pneumonia, diabetes, heart disease, all combined together, the reimbursement will be higher. I'm sure the hospitals will be happier to be repaid on this type of mechanism. With this system, I am thinking that the need for MAEPIP program will decline.
Herbosa further assured that the public that politicians are prohibited from intervening in the release of processing of medical assistance funded under MAEFIP in the 2026 national budget. He said requests for MAEFIP aid must be cursed strictly through hospital-based medical social workers.
Basically, what patients should do now is to go to the social worker in the hospital, to go to the hospital director or to the regional director of our Department of Health offices to access medical assistance for indigent funds. And what is also good in the new budget is that the legislators allocated 1 billion pesos so we could expand the ZBB program to local government unit-run hospitals.
On health infrastructures, Herbosa noted the government has funded around 800 super health centers since 2022, with about 500 already completed and 300 still under construction. However, only around 200 of the completed facilities are currently operational, while more than 300 remain non-functional due to a shortage of medical personnel.
Coming right up, the LTO has issued a response to concerns voiced by motoring expert James Deacon concerning his son's recent traffic violation case. We'll discuss that with James Deacon himself when Morning Matters returns after a short break. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here in One News. The Land Transportation Office has responded to complaints by transport vlogger James Deacon over the handling of his son's traffic violation. The LTO said reckless driving is not a criminal offense and released CCTV footage showing the violation on Skyway last December. It also found that the vehicle involved was unregistered and should not have been on public roads. The agency has issued a show cause order to the car dealer and a subpoena to the driver.
Kung tutusin, kasi dapat double reckless yun eh. Kasi yung sasakyan mo, walang papel eh. Hindi po dapat tumatakbo sa kali yun. Yun po ay dapat nasa showroom o nasa factory.
The Anti-Red Tape Authority has ruled that the Land Transportation Office violated the Ease of Doing Business law after a Zoom hearing found that requiring an ORCR to settle a traffic violation is not part of the agency's official requirements under its Citizens Charter. Let's discuss that and more with motoring expert James Deakin. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Morning Matters.
Morning.
James.
Hi, Gretchen.
Good to see you.
Yes, good to see you again.
You know what, regardless of who is at fault here, whether it's your son or the LTO, I'm sorry to hear about what happened. No parent wants that ever to happen to his own son. But the LTO has already responded to your social media post via press conference, a lengthy one yesterday, where they said that driving a car that is not registered is considered to be classified under reckless driving. That's, they say, under Joint Administrative Order 2401. Your response to the LTO statement?
Well, I was today years old when I found that out too. So I've never, this is not our car, right? So this is one of these media vehicles that they lend you to shoot your content. I just finished shooting content for that car, and my son drove it. My question is, so I've contacted BYD as well. They've contacted BYD because I'm not the owner of the car, so I don't have the papers of that car. So they've contacted them. I've asked them for the same from BYD. My question here, Gretchen, is if it was unregistered, why was it not listed on the ticket? Why was it not picked up on the apprehension? Why did we go through the whole East Avenue process and it was never detected or picked up or suggested or mentioned? We have settled the fine. Everything has been done. It's already a closed case. And then we find out through a press con that the car that my son was reckless, and the CCTV showing there the traffic buildup, and then the unregistered part. So it's just as big a surprise for me. And I had asked ASEC for this footage. I had asked the LTO if I could see this footage because I didn't know. I just wanted clarification on what exactly constitutes reckless driving. That was my question. What constitutes it? Because a lot of people also complain to me that this is used incorrectly, and many times it's used as a coercion tactic to be able to settle your violation or avoid the penalties.
Do you remember at what speed your son was going when he tried to get in that lane? Can you narrate to us the sequence of events that happened here para lang mas clear, no? Kasi yung details are all coming from the LTO. So from your point of view, what happened?
Correct. I wasn't in the car, Gretchen. I have to be clear about that. I wasn't with my son. He was driving alone. And when he called me, he told me that this was bumper-to-bumper traffic, which you can see in the still that he showed. It's bumper-to-bumper traffic on Christmas rush. So that was about, I don't know what time, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, right? December 19 or 18 or something like that. You can imagine, you can see the cars. So there's no speed involved in this, which is why I was confused. Why would you call that reckless driving? Nobody is denying that he made a mistake and there's a violation. That was said from the beginning and accepted, and the ticket was accepted. The question was, why? What does constitute reckless driving? I just need a clarification on that because this is a sticking point for a lot of motorists. Just crossing a double yellow line, in my understanding of reckless driving, according to RA 4136, is not reckless because it requires you to show wanton disregard for public safety and endanger the lives of others. I don't see how you can endanger the life of others if you are doing a 1 or 2 or 3 kilometer, what looks like a crawl over here, trying to get in. It is a violation, but is it reckless? That was my question. And instead of answering the person that asked for it, they held a press conference about it.
You're right. No, I was looking at the law, no? RA 4136, the definition of reckless driving here says that it refers to the act of operating a motor vehicle dangerously, which puts at risk the safety of persons, both motorists and pedestrians. It does say that part nun, pwede kang mag-cause ng excessive or unreasonable damage to the highway. The other one is when you endanger the property or the safety or rights of any person. Well, in relation to that, ang sinabi ng LTO is, kita mo naman sa likod, no? Dangerous maneuver yung ginawa ng anak ninyo going into that lane kasi maraming naipit sa likod and anything could have happened.
Anything could have happened at 3 kilometers an hour. I mean, that's what my question is do you leave this to the discretion of the officer? Because anyone that sees that will see that as obstruction of traffic. And like I said, nobody's trying to say that he wasn't committing a violation. He admitted as much. That was from the get-go. He said, I'm a new driver. I've never been to this part of the Skyway before. It's a little confusing. When I realized my exit, I came out too late. Why did we get just stills like this, which are so grainy and blurry? I don't even know. I can't even tell what kind of car that is. And I'm a car guy. It's just very, very grainy and blurry and far. And obviously, if you're not going to show the video, we're not going to see the speed. And again, I would be willing to accept it if I just got the explanation. I wasn't contesting it. And I made it clear, I'm not contesting this. The fine has been paid already. It's already done. So I don't know why.
Which part of it are you not contesting?
None of it. None of it. If it's reckless driving, it's reckless driving. I just wanted to know clarification. I said, because this is a question I also get asked. Number one, it doesn't fall under a criminal offense because when you Google it, it does say it's a criminal offense. Now, when you go deeper, you'll find out that it needs to be reckless imprudence, resulting in either damage to property or injury or homicide for it to become criminal. But you don't know that on for the 2 weeks in the Christmas break where your son's stressing out whether he's going to have a criminal record or not. So I just wanted clarification, and I contacted ASEC on December 20, 2 days after, just to ask for a little guidance here and a little clarification. He didn't want to talk to me about it. He just said, go to the LTO and sort it out there. So I did that, and I hit several walls there. And then I didn't bother contesting it anymore because we missed the 5-day period, and I couldn't get access to the CCTV. So I just left it at that. So you can imagine my surprise where the day or two later, he's holding a press con and he's showing the entire country this footage that I had asked for. I would imagine that due process would be the person who's requesting for it, the person who's actually got the violation should have the right to see their own evidence before the rest of the world, don't you think?
Was it not on the ticket that it was reckless driving that was being charged against your son?
That's why I was concerned. He ticked double yellow line, or he wrote double yellow. And then he ticked reckless driving. So that's why I wanted to clarify. Is it both? I thought a double yellow line is in itself a violation. It's disregarding traffic markings. Why would you automatically escalate that to dangerous driving? Once again, I just want to be clear. If I had seen the video and it was explained to me that this constitutes reckless driving, whether or not I agree, if that's what they constitute as reckless driving, I accepted it. So, this is what frustrates me here, is he was asked a question about the ease of doing business, and he went and he answered a different.
We're getting James a little bit choppy on that line. We'll try to fix the connection and have him back on the show. In the meantime, please stay with us. Don't go away. We got more matters to discuss after a quick break. Keep it here in One News. Welcome back. You're still here watching Morning Matters to talk about the incident, the viral incident regarding involving his son. We have back on the show motoring expert James Deacon. James, how's your connection?
Sorry about that.
Okay, balik natin doon sa topic natin. Okay, regarding the reckless driving violation that was imputed on your son. So this was on the ticket, but you had not contested this within the 5 days through official channels. How come? How come that didn't happen?
I just couldn't get down. We couldn't get down there within the 5-day window, and that's why I contacted ASEC and I contacted a couple of other people I knew to ask for clarification because I just knew we couldn't make it within the 5 days. So I told my son, be prepared to accept it. At the end of the day, you do know that you did something wrong. You crossed the double yellow line. Are you aware of that? He said, yes. Okay, so then there's no question here that you have to take whatever the penalty is. As a father, as a motoring journalist, I just want to make sure it's applied correctly. That's all. And that's my right. That's his right too. You get a
But
right to ask about what constitutes reckless driving. So by asking, I was asking for exactly this. But instead of showing me, he shows the entire country. He goes on national television first and tells everybody else. I just think that's a violation of due process. At least that's what it feels like on our part. So we're not contesting it. We haven't contested it. It's a sealed and done issue. The ticket was already paid. So I don't know why he's bringing it up if it's only not to deflect from the real issue, which is the ease of doing business and some of these strange requirements they have at the LTO, like they will hold you to the calendar days, but yet they'll hold themselves to working days when it's commitments to you. So if you do anything that requires, let's say, the LTO to produce a transfer of sale or something, they can go by working days. That's clear. But for us, it includes holidays. So I just wanted a clarification for that. And instead, what we got was this press con.
But James, hindi ba meron website where these violations are logged into, yung myhulika.com? Did you not get the chance to do it electronically?
He tried. It wasn't listed on the portal. My son had tried going online to do this online, and there was nothing on the LTMS portal. He had checked it before Christmas. So then when we came back,
and what day did
that's when we
this
went
happen?
to the LTO.
What day did this happen?
This happened around, I think, the 18th of December.
19th?
18th, I think. 18th or 19th,
okay.
I'm not sure.
And there wasn't office anymore right after that?
There were a few days after that, but we weren't available to make it. So that's why we went. So I told him, look, if you miss the window of contention, you got to miss it. That's all it is. But that doesn't mean you still can't ask clarification. You're not contesting. You're just asking a question to the authority, what constitutes reckless driving? Because in RA 4136, there's a very clear definition. If there's an administrative interpretation of that, I need to know what that is, because it just feels like it's unfairly applied. And these words matter, Gretchen, especially when it comes down to your record. So I just wanted to know. And by all means, if he is guilty of that, he should pay the penalty, which he did. So I don't understand why this is becoming an issue if it's not just to deflect.
Well, the public is with you on finding out the truth to that, because I don't think it's uncommon to see people cross that two yellow lane or two lines going to the highway's exit, no? Lalo na kung hindi ka masyadong familiar with Skyway, you're prone to doing that, and so we are with you on that. But the formal way to actually get clarification on this is to bring this to what I know is to be a traffic court within the LTO. Do you have any plans of formally raising that up? Even if you say you're not contesting that there was a violation, would you contest that charge formally in the traffic court within the LTO?
If there's still an opportunity to do that, I would love to. I just didn't want to pull any favors or get any special treatment, because if there's a 5-day window, that's the 5-day window. I don't expect to be treated like anybody else. So that's why we just paid the fine. I paid it begrudgingly. Well, my son paid it, but we paid it begrudgingly. But it's an offense. It needs to be fixed up. And I just wanted clarification, even if it's not contestation. I just want clarification, because as a motoring journalist, this is a very common question I get asked, and I never get an answer to it. It's always very vague. Basta reckless lang yan. But the thing with reckless is it does increase the penalty, and it does go on your record, and it's just, I guess words matter, because you're devaluing reckless driving. What do you call reckless driving when it really is reckless driving? When just crossing a double yellow even at that speed is considered reckless driving? I mean, who gets to interpret these rules? That's all I'm asking.
Okay, you had a meeting with the Anti-Red Tape Authority yesterday. What did they tell you? What were their findings? And how can the public avail, I guess, of their services? Because I do believe that they've stepped in a couple of times, even with license plate issues. Ano yung sinabi ng ARTA po sa inyo yesterday?
They were very, very good. I got to give them full props here, Gretchen. I was so impressed because I had already kind of, the way I was feeling, had lost a lot of faith. So to be able to see that kind of commitment from a government agency to make sure that the ease of business, doing business law is enforced, what they did was they just clearly boiled it down to one question. They couldn't get, they're not involved in the reckless driving part, of course. I didn't expect them to. And nor do they have any say in the 15-day period. What they were very concerned about was, why were you asking for documents that were not in the Citizens Charter? It was a direct question to the attorney of the LTO. Is it in the Citizens Charter that this document, this ORCR, is required to settle a traffic violation? He tried to explain it many times, and it was just yes or no, and it was a no. So he said it's very clear. That is a violation of the ease of doing business law. So the ARTA were quite clear. They haven't come up with their official ruling yet. That was a hearing. And when they do, they'll let me know, and they'll let the LTO know as well. But that's what they indicated to us, that it's a very clear violation because it's not in the Citizens Charter.
Okay, did the police officer ask for the ORCR on the road when your son was apprehended?
I wasn't in the car again, Gretchen, so I don't know. All I know is that he did fill out the ticket, and he did give him the ticket, and we went to the LTO with that ticket, and we settled the fine with that ticket, and everything was done, except we couldn't get the license because he had exceeded the 15 days. So, like I said, this is the first time I had heard of this whole unregistered thing. And yet we're waiting for the BYD to come up with or tell us or tell the LTO what happened with the papers of that car, because it has conduction sticker. It has a vehicle sales invoice. It has a temporary plate on it. That's all I'm going by. As I said, I don't own the car. I'm just using it for a content purposes. And this is what they're designed for. They lend out vehicles.
But I think But I think that's an important detail there. If the police officer had asked for the ORCR right there and then it would somehow justify what the LTO chief was saying, na they are charging your son with reckless driving because of the lack of registration of the car. Then that would make, or that would line up more, because it wasn't after the fact if hiningi yung ORCR during the situation.
Yes, well, as I said, I wasn't there, so I can't answer that. And if there wasn't, if it's procedure, because I did ask the LTO that during the ARTA meeting. I said, if it's a question of like having no ORCR in the car, what is the penalty for that? And he couldn't answer, because I was saying, what I was getting at was, what would happen if there's no ORCR in the car, and why didn't that happen? Like, it's my son's first time to ever be pulled over. He's only had his license for a few months. So he does not know these procedures. So I'm trying to teach him the proper procedures and the laws, and I can't seem to get a clear answer. So that's why these things matter. And I asked, what would happen if he didn't have the ORCR in the car? And why didn't that happen? So it means that there was, a failure on the part of the officer to follow procedure? I don't know. Because he wrote the ticket and it was all done. It went through the LTO process. It was all done. The fine was paid. The case was closed. And the only thing pending right now was the license to be picked up because he had exceeded the 15 days. So to throw this reckless driving, an extra reckless driving charge for not having an ORCR in the car, it just feels, again, like deflection. And it feels like it is not being, it's not very sincere. It is just trying to get away from the real issues here.
Well, as a driver myself, I understand your frustration with bureaucratic red tape, and I do know you're a strong advocate of making things better on the road. So just taking a look at the whole situation here and the learnings from this incident, how far do you want this advocacy to go on your end? What changes would you like to see, and what did ARTA tell you about what is possible in terms of changing the process realistically for this to apply to everybody else moving forward, to at least make things better? Did the LTO have that posturing with you? Now we want to make things better at least.
Well, I'll start with what would I like to happen. I would like to get clarification. I would like it to be very clear what exactly reckless driving is, so that not just for myself, but for everybody that has that same question, that changes lane and then just gets a reckless driving charge. Does speed not come into the factor? Does endangerment not come into it? What are you basing this on? I would love to see a reform where one idea that was thrown to me by a friend was really good. I think that the enforcers should also have a point system. Just like licenses should have a point system, and you get deducted points when you commit violations, and if you run out of points, you have your license suspended. The same should apply for an officer. They should get points, and if there is a problem with them applying the law incorrectly, they should lose points also. So that if they are repeat offenders, we get rid of them. Because this is where people get a lot of frustration from. When you get a reckless driving charge, people will do a lot to be able to skirt that, because it is a lot of hassle, as we know. And that creates a path of least resistance. And that path of least resistance ends up with the people we don't want to be handling our affairs, right? Which are fixers. So that's what I would like to see happen there. On the side of ARTA, I think they would just like to see the law being enforced. That's it, or followed, because there is already a law about unnecessary paperwork. So we don't need any new laws there. We just need them to follow the ones that have been given to them. And then lastly, I just want people to know that regardless of this experience, please, we only get better as a society if we all follow the rules. So please don't get discouraged by this. Even if sometimes the system lets you down, still, it's very important for you to follow the rules. Otherwise, we'll just live in anarchy.
And well, you started your post with that you wanted your son to learn how to follow the law, and that was the goal, no? Pero on the other side of things, what were your personal learnings? I mean, taking a car as a motoring expert, reviewing it from BYD na walang tamang papeles. At the same time, I guess your learnings about going through the process. Would you admit there were also some lapses on your part about following the process for contesting this charge? Talking about, sabi kasi ng LTO, yung 15 days were described as calendar days, not working days, right? So do you admit to having some lapses there?
You know, obviously in hindsight, we can always improve on anything, right? And obviously in hindsight, I could have gone on the days that were open, but then you do give people 15 days. So you have all of those days to use it. It was just a miscommunication on the part of the LTO on what are calendar days and what are working days. And I think it's a very fair point that you cannot have a double standard, where when it comes to the responsibility of LTO to deliver to us, you go by working days. But when it is us having to deliver to you, it is calendar days. That is clearly a double standard. And that, I think, should be corrected. So some of the learnings I have here is, well, yes, settle your fines as quickly as possible. Don't wait till the last minute. But in my case, there was 8 or 9 days out of the 15 that were closed. So I didn't see that coming. I didn't realize that those days were included as well. Always carry your ORCR in your car, or even a digital copy of it, just to make sure. If you're borrowing a car, also just make sure that the car does have its papers in the car, or you have it in your phone. And yes, just be a little bit more diligent. And of course, with my son, just because you missed an exit and you're a new driver, that doesn't mean you can cross the double yellow line. Take the next exit. It's going to be a bit of a hassle, but that's the only way to do it. So those are my learnings, and I hope a lot of people get the same thing. But I hope the LTO have also learned from this that they cannot just be using this reckless driving rule so indiscriminately, because it devalues it. And then we have real cases where reckless driving should count, but it'll mean nothing if it means anything becomes a reckless driving charge.
Well, James, we do hope that we get to the bottom of this, that you get a hold of a copy of that video for us to get down to the truth. And as you mentioned a while ago, your intent here was to follow the law. I guess it's the same with many other Filipinos. Just don't make it hard to follow the law, right?
That's all it is, Gretchen. Just don't make it harder to go down the correct path and the path of least resistance. That's all we're asking for here. Just rewire the incentive structure, okay? Because right now the incentive reward loop is towards the favor of the fixers, and we don't get anywhere like that. So I want to make that clear to everyone. Do not use the fixers. Do not try to take shortcuts. This is what I tried not to do. This thing could have been over so simply if I had just used contacts in the LTO. But what would that teach my son? So in a way, as difficult as this is, I don't mind that he has to go through this because, well, it just shows. I mean, we've learned a lot from this. I think not just us, but the entire country have learned a lot from this.
Well, I do hope to see some institutional changes happen. That would be the best case scenario. And I hope that your son is not traumatized by all of this. In the meantime, maraming salamat no, for joining us this morning and breaking that down for us. Your son isn't traumatized naman, ano?
Well, I hope not. He seems okay naman. But
Okay.
I think it was unfair what they did. But yeah, he's okay. He'll be okay. He knows naman that, Gretchen, he didn't do what he did, he said from the beginning. So it's not like he tried to hide from something. So that makes him feel okay. Is that he was truthful from the very beginning. I made a mistake. I wanted to follow the process like my dad told me. And this is where it got me. So had he said, Dad, I never did that, and then the CCTV comes and shows something different, then I think he would be very traumatized. And so would I. So would I. But no, it's what he said happened was what was showed on the CCTV. Nothing that he said was all the truth.
Okay.
So people make mistakes, and I think that it's also how these mistakes are handled that you should be judged on instead.
We hope this ends up well for you. Maraming salamat for joining us this morning. We have James Deacon sharing his personal experience with his son out on the roads. Up next, several organizations are voicing alarm over how the 2026 national budget will be spent to prevent the misuse of public funds. Joining us next, we have AJ Montesa, co-convener of the People's Budget Coalition. Don't go away. Morning Matters will be back after a quick break. And good morning, Gretchen Ho here at Morning Matters. We talk about the most pressing issues and give you the context behind headlines. Senator Imee has raised questions over the large amount of social assistance funds included in the 2026 national budget. Senator Imee said the allocation significantly increased compared with the original budget proposal, raising concerns that the funds could be used as so-called soft work for political purposes. She also cited information suggesting that some lawmakers were allegedly promised assistance from these programs.
I think the congressmen have discussed it already. Unang-una, narinig natin na 2 million ang kanilang Christmas break. Pagkatapos napangakuan na sila nung iba't ibang soft, ng iba't ibang maibibigay mula sa AIX. Magkano yung AIX, magkano yung tupad, magkano yung maifip. Lahat yan mabibigay. Tapos may bago pa pala. Nagulat na ako, sabi ko, saan galing itong 10 billion na to na presidential assistance to farmers.
The Makati Business Club is urging President Marcos to issue an executive order setting clear rules for the distribution of government aid funds. The group also called on the president to limit confidential funds to promote transparency in the 2026 budget. They said while the budget shows improvements on program allocations remain vulnerable to discretionary use. Marcos has said politicians will be barred from intervening in aid distribution, while business groups stress that strong safeguards during implementation are crucial. And joining us this morning to talk more about the 2026 national budget, we have People's Budget Coalition co-convener AJ Montesa. Magandang umaga sa'yo, AJ.
Hi, good morning, Gretch. Thanks for having us.
Okay, the 6.79 trillion budget has been signed by the president. That's about 500 billion pesos higher than the 2025 budget. From the most corrupt in 2025, this has been dubbed as the cleanest budget ever. Yet we're still seeing a rise in those numbers. And secondly, this has been called by the sister of the president as a sneaky budget. Which is it? Which is the proper description for the People's Budget Coalition? Is it, I mean, in that spectrum, no, from being the most corrupt to the cleanest to this becoming a sneaky budget? Ano ang inyong assessment?
Yeah, I think it's really a mixed bag, somewhere in between. And siguro the way that I would characterize it is really a missed opportunity. So context matters here. Nanggagaling tayo sa isang konteksto kung saan the 2025 budget was really plagued with corruption issues. And in fact, if we go back in time and look at how the previous budgets were implemented, we're observing a lot of corruption in the 2024, 2023, and flood control issues have been raised even as early as 2019. No? So we're seeing that there has been a trend towards corruption in the budget. But we're not saying that this budget is absolutely corrupt naman. We're not saying it's completely corrupt. We're flagging the red flags because these are items that are really prone to corruption despite some of the progress that was made, particularly by the Senate, for example. So si Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, they did a lot of efforts to curb the corruption in the DPWH budget, lalo na yung mga overpricing, yung mga repeated projects, di ba? So they did a lot of work there. Kaya nga nagkaroon ng deadlock sa BICAM because they really tried to remove and cull that overpricing. So we have to acknowledge that there was some gains there, but yung soft pork na fina-flag po natin, this is really alarming because in the National Expenditure Program, what the executive actually proposed here was just 98 billion pesos. If we total all of it, no, the items that we're flagging under this, by the time na na-approve na siya ng BICAM, naging 218 pesos na siya. So more than double what was originally proposed. And what we flagged here kasi ay nagagamit ito for patronage, no? So yung pagbili ng boto through medical assistance, through referral letters sa mga ayuda. At the end of the day, they're saying that there's safeguards now, but we have yet to see na effectively this will be implemented.
So from 98 billion, naging 218 billion.
Yes. So,
support,
yung sinasabi po natin dito, this includes yung mga MAIFIP, AIX, TUPAD, pati yung mga programs na wala doon sa proposal. For example, yung tulong-dunong program ng CHED, yung sinasabi ni Senator Imee na presidential assistance to farmers and fisherfolk. But this also includes yung mga local government support na we've noticed na nabobloat ito and nagagamit din ito ng mga local politicians as well for soft and hard projects na tinatawag na nagiging source of patronage as well.
But is the rise from 6.3 to 6.79 trillion justified? Parang ano ba, ang budget ba, dapat ba talaga tumataas yan every year? Kasi parang nakikita natin lumulobo na lumulobo. Is inflation, could inflation be a part of that increase?
Yes. Actually, the way that the expenditure ceiling is planned, from the start of the administration pa lang, the economic managers, the DBCC, already sets what the 6-year roadmap will be. So meron na silang tinatawag na medium-term fiscal framework. So they take into account the level of debt, they take into account the revenue projections, the projections for the economy, and every year they calculate what is the reasonable amount of spending that the government can do without overburdening yung current na debt natin. So in fact, they've already planned yung ganitong trajectory of expenditure, and I think within reasonable bounds naman yung 6.793. What we're really concerned with is not how much we're spending, but how efficiently, where are these items allocated. So kung malaki yung expenditure mo at maraming items dito na questionable, na napupunta sa ghost projects, nasasayang lang yung pera na yun.
So yung 6.79, okay lang ito. Kahit na the 6.3 billion budget was tagged as the most corrupt ever, malaki yung, kumbaga parang, maaaring tanggalin in terms of overpricing, in terms of actual projects delivered. Isn't it justified to at least make it the same? Or is that set pa rin na parang ito yung target spending natin because it's the best for the economy, for economic growth?
Yeah, kasi the reality is, even if you can cut spending, for example, in the DPWH, there will still always be other items that we need to invest more on. So for example, sa education, diba? Kulang na kulang yung education expenditure in the past few years. The expenditure on health, one of the reasons na na-criticize yung 2025 budget is because they zeroed out the budget for PhilHealth. So kulang na kulang pa rin yung investment in those sectors, and yet overpriced yung budget for the DPWH. So even if we can cut some of these overpricing, criticizing, ang punot dulo nito ay we should be investing more in a lot of these other sectors.
Taking a look at what the president has vetoed, that's about 92.5 billion worth of vetoes. There were three provisions that were a source of concern for Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, yung Cars and Race program, pati na rin yung government of the Philippines counterpart for foreign assisted projects. Are these significant for you, yung mga vinito ng Pangulo, o medyo concerning din?
Okay, so this is a very tricky discussion now. We have to really contextualize this. So unang-una, what is the UA, yung unprogrammed appropriations? So this is a set of standby items. So ibig sabihin, these are items na hindi pa guaranteed na magagastos natin because they require an excess revenue, for example. So there are three conditions. It requires either there's a new source of taxes, there's an excess revenue in terms of the target, so we overshot our targets in terms of taxes, and the third is there's a new loan that comes in that was not initially planned. So ibig sabihin, there are some items in the UA that's not guaranteed in the first place. So our question was not whether these items should have been budgeted, because we agree, yung pinopoint out ni Senator Sherwin, yung race and yung cars, these are commitments from the past that we should have paid already to companies who have invested in the country. Unfortunately, ang question namin ay, bakit siya nalagay sa UA? Hindi ba dapat nalagay siya sa regular program budget kung saan these will definitely be settled? This is a trend that we noticed also in past budgets. One of the things that they put in the UA in the past is yung emergency allowances na binibigay sa mga healthcare workers. So for a long time, they committed to paying off yung allowances ng healthcare workers who responded nung pandemic, and yet nilalagay nila sa UA. So every year, parang naglalapse siya na hindi nababayaran sila, na nade-delay siya ng nade-delay. So ang point namin is, why not put these funds in the regular program budget and cut some of the pork? So, di ba, yun yung nagiging dynamic eh. They're inserting pork, they're inserting a lot of patronage programs to the detriment of some of the priority items that should have been part of the program budget.
You're right to point out, no, that these are all provisions under the unprogrammed appropriations, 7 vetoed line items, 92.5 billion pesos worth. But what other things should have the president visited? What other red flags do you note?
Right. The thing that we really flagged was the soft pork na tinatawag natin. So it might have been too late now for the president to act on it because vetoing it would have zeroed it out dahil lump sum usually yung mga items na ito. So a veto would have prevented the agencies, for example, from implementing MAIFIP at all, completely zero. No? So what we called for was more nuance. What we really wanted was an executive order where the president could really define how these things will be rationalized, how these will be planned, who the beneficiaries are, and how these will be implemented without the politics. Ang sinasabi ng Senate and House leadership ay may safeguards na. So they're saying bawal na mag-influence yung politiko dun sa distribution. But what we've pointed out is that these provisions that they're saying don't really have clear mechanisms. Paano ito marireport? Halimbawa, kapag may violation, ano yung parusa, ano yung penalty. So our experience is if there's no clear penalty when it comes to violations, ang nangyayari ay hindi siya na-implement ng tama. And then at the same time, yung dynamic pa ay habang malabo pa, hindi malinaw yung safeguards na ito, bakit nila dinoble yung funds na ito? So they're telling us, okay, we'll clean this up, but we don't know yet how it's going to be clean. They're just promising that it's going to be clean and we have to take their word for it.
Well, one of the proponents or the lead in raising alarm over the soft pork in the budget is Senator Imee Marcos, who was many times seen distributing AICs before the elections in 2025. Pero ngayon, sinasabi niya na maaaring gamitin itong soft pork to be able to gain votes and revive the impeachment against the Vice President. As it is right now, with the way the budget is constructed with AICs, TUPAD, MAIFIP, is there, or in what way could that pork be used to buy the votes?
And that's the tricky thing. The politicians who might be criticizing it now, might be the same ones who benefited from it from the past. No, that's why actually it's very important that it's really the people, it's the civil society that monitors this. It's not the politicians themselves. One of the provisions is there is going to be a joint oversight committee from Congress, so members of the House and members of the Senate. And yet we find that problematic because it's them auditing or oversight, exercising oversight on themselves,
Over
diba?
them.
So kung may nakita silang violation, diba? The problem is baka ma-interpret yun na politics lang. So it's very important that these observations really come from civil society, from the people. The pronouncement that this is a corruption-free or a pork-free budget shouldn't come from the politicians. It should really come from the people on the ground, civil society, who make these observations. So that's what we're hoping for. In the implementation of the budget, we're still calling for the executive order, but we're also calling that they allow provisions, they allow mechanisms that people like us, when we make our observations on the budget, ay ma-involve ma-involve tayo dun sa pag-audit at pag-oversight ng budget.
Congressman Toby Chanco has raised another concern, which is on the break bonuses. Sa ngayon, saan niyo nakikita na maaaring kinukuha ito? Kung ito pala ay ginagawa na before pa the Marcos administration, where is this sourced from?
Yeah, one of the things that we noticed also is that the House of Representatives in particular has always been increasing its own budget compared to the National Expenditure Program. So for example, in this budget, the proposal in the National Expenditure Program is something like 17 billion lamang, and yet they increased it by around 10 to 11 billion pesos. And that's a trend that's been happening for the past few years, at least since 2022. The budget is a zero-sum, budget legislation is a zero-sum game kasi. So, ibig sabihin, kung tataasan mo yung budget ng isang ahensya or ng isang programa, you have to take that away from another program or another agency to balance the budget, no? Kasi nakakap yung ceiling na 6.793. So, if Congress increased its own budget, then they necessarily had to take it away from other programs. It's not a one-to-one thing na we can account for where exactly they got that, but the point is, it will come from somewhere else.
Oo. So, ito, you are seeing a trend that the House budget is increasing.
Yes, what they will say is compared to last year's budget, mas mababa yung budget na ito, no? Kasi I think they're comparing the GAA from last year to this year. The GAA last year, around 30 plus billion, and then this year it's around 27 billion, 28, 27 billion. So it's a decrease, but it doesn't factor the context that yung proposal actually ng DBM for the House of Representatives has been around 16 to 17 billion. So Congress has always been increasing their own budget through the legislation process by around 10 to 11 billion pesos for the past 3 or 4 years already. So that's a worrying trend that we're seeing also.
Maaari kaya kinukuha ito dun sa MOOE, maintenance, I forgot what this stands for, but it is maintenance expenses, right? Because doon sa MOOE na yon, hindi kailangan ng ng audit eh. Parang certification lang of how the money was spent. Could that have been where they would get the bonuses?
Yeah, it's very possible. I think it's best to ask exactly the House leadership how they will account for that. At yun nga yung issue ng accountability. Kung hindi malinaw sa tao kung saan nanggagaling yung pera na iyon, that's where questions will come in. Lalo na ngayon, again, yung context is people have essentially zero trust in Congress, in the budget process. So if they're increasing their own budget, it really raises a lot of red flags.
And so what is the proposal of the People's Budget Coalition to have greater accountability?
Something that we advocated for from the very beginning of the process is there should be a budget transparency server, an open budget transparency server. So this year we made a lot of progress na naging open yung BICAM. And again, we recognize that people like Senator Sherwin Gatchalian gave us access to the Excel files when they were still deliberating the budget. And that's how we were able to really analyze all the projects of the DPWH and flag all the risky and red flag items. But if it doesn't happen from the very beginning, that's where you can essentially possibly have lapses, possibly have insertions, and influence ng Congress as a national expenditure program pa lang. So when we're calling for an open budget transparency server, what this means is from the budget call pa lang, there is a transparency server. Like if you're familiar with election servers, diba? Yung transparency server kapag election, natatrack natin every day kung may pumapasok na bagong boto, we can track how how the trend of the votes are happening. Dapat ganun. At every stage of the budget process, from the executive, from the departments, to the House of Representatives, to the committee hearings, to the Senate, and then eventually to the BICAM and even the presidential veto, these things should be out and open in the public, and it will allow us to do our analysis and comment in real time so that we can give our direct feedback to our legislators and lawmakers.
A people's audit instead of a joint oversight committee by the House and the Senate, no? Okay, maraming salamat. We do hope that dream comes true and that gets legislated. We have People's Budget Coalition co-convener AJ Montesa. Keep up the good work on your side.
Thank you so much, Gretchen. Have a good morning.
And that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. We hope we've given you the right start to your morning. Let's go ahead and make the day matter. My name is Gretchen Ho. Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time.